Hey APVMA, we're here today with...
Hello, my name is Richard Bagala. I go to Delaware Valley University, and I run the social media account Mr.Untamedd.
All right, Richard, what inspired you to start a social media page focused on reptile education?
I've always loved animals, specifically reptiles, and to get that kind of hands-on experience, I knew I loved talking to people, and being able to travel to different locations and network hands-on and provide a service to them by making educational videos for sanctuaries and things like that. It was a perfect mix for me.
Perfect. Is there anything that you'd really like to highlight about your Instagram page or your journey? Is there anything that you feel really passionate about within your content?
Yeah, I love making my content relatable. I feel like I want anybody with any sort of interest of animals to look at my page and feel like they can watch the video and not be discouraged by anything I'm saying and really relate to it and want to learn about it. I think relatability is a way to educate the next generation and other people that aren't just in vet med but love animals, and so that more people could care about animals.
All right, and I know one thing that I definitely struggle with is, if you're at APVMA Symposium with us today, you'll know me from my speech saying, I don't really write speeches. I have a really hard time staying professional while still being relatable, like you said, and engaging. I really have a hard time balancing between the two. So how do you focus on being relatable if that's such a big value for you while still being engaging and professional? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, just like an example of it is, so when I'm doing my content, I know a lot about certain types of reptiles, and I could use certain bigger words in my content, such as being like arboreal, being tree dwelling and things like that. But I'd rather break that down in a simpler format so that somebody watching isn't like, what does that mean? And will watch the whole video and learn something. And I feel like over time that can create more engagement for my viewers, more like that they will come back and watch more of my videos just by feeling more comfortable watching my content.
I think that's really cool. I know it's really hard to watch doctors and all these kinds of people come. We interviewed somebody and they used all these big words and we were like, oh, we hope that people know what that means.
Definitely. I think it's a great skill in order to take people from different levels of education and explain really complicated issues. So what previous experiences have you had in your life that shaped your passion to help people with reptile education?
Well, I've always loved social media. Going into college, I always wanted to be a veterinarian, but I didn't know if I had what it took academically. And I knew I had to work harder than other people to get to where I wanted. But one thing I knew is that I loved to talk and love social media. So I love Steve Irwin and guys like that. So they really inspired me to go out there and put my own footprint out there and kind of make my persona of Mr.Untamedd. And then I worked really hard in the classroom. And I said, hey, I can keep up with everybody academically. I have the experience from working with all these different places. I'm a pretty competitive applicant. So then I kept rolling from there.
Yeah, that seems super cool. I know that the executive board didn't really have our idea for the interview series until about halfway through. So that wasn't ever something that I don't think any of us saw ourselves doing. So it's definitely a whole different journey to go in with an idea and say, I really want to do this.
Definitely. So how does your time in school and your pre-vet background also influence your page? Do you find a lot of your classes connect with what you're talking about, or is the scope completely different?
I don't know if it connects directly, but what it does give me is some great connections and some great contacts. Some of my professors will tell me locations. I'll learn certain words and vocabulary to be more confident when I'm saying my content. And something big that my professors help me with is fact-checking some of my information. I always make sure to put out true information, and I always get it fact-checked by my professors, by shop owners, and things like that. So.
Having resources like that is really important. So how do you balance this? Because this is a lot of communication on your end. It's a lot of drafting, writing. So like a 2-minute video, it might take you over an hour, right, in the editing process. How do you balance that with school?
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that. I feel very, very fortunate to have a whole team that I can kind of rely on, and they might know, or they might not know much about the editing process, but I can always say hey, what do you think about these questions? What do you think about this and that? So how do you do that on your own, essentially?
Yeah, so people are always going to say this, but time management is really the biggest thing. I'm very strict with my schedule, and I'll find different gaps to do certain work. So an example of it is I like to do cardio in the morning. I like to do cardio after the gym, and I'll sit on the bike, and that's when I'll actually edit my videos, do my stories, and respond to my followers in my messages. So I'll take that time to do all my kind of busy work like that. And Yeah, time management is definitely very difficult. Taking a full semester load, like all pre-vet students usually do, having other curricular activities like research and stuff like that, it's definitely hard. But just finding those gaps and saying, I'm sitting down doing this at this time, that's what really helps me.
So do you have a certain, I know I got this question a lot when I was an orientation counselor for my college over the summer. Do you have a certain app or anything that you use to schedule? I know some people use Google Calendars, Outlook Calendars, Notion. What is your preferred one, just out of curiosity?
I'm very old-fashioned. I like a good notebook. I usually the night before I go to sleep, I'll sit down, I'll write down my timing for the day. I'm doing this at this time, this at this time, and then I'll do the same thing the next morning.
I love a traditional planner, but I'm really bad about actually bringing that giant planner with me because I'm lazy and my backpack's heavy.
I also like pocketbook planners, but I also double it on my Google Calendar too, because I need like 5 reminders. It seems like you're very, very organized. Have you always had that skill, or did you have to acquire it because you had big goals in mind?
I definitely wasn't always organized. I did struggle in my high school years before going into undergrad. And like I said before, I knew that I had to work very hard academically. And I had to, even on my vet application, I needed to stand out in some other way. So I took that initiative first day of college and said, hey, this is how I'm going to be different. I'm going to go with this. This is original. I love what I'm doing. And I'm going to go with it. And time management with doing my research that I have on campus, with my videos, with my semester load, being VP of my pre-vet club, all that stuff, time management was crucial. And I adapted that very early.
Have you seen any positive changes in people's perception of reptiles because of your content? You know, you post this educational content. I know you might face some backlash with that. Some people don't really understand vet med as a whole or why we handle live animals the way we do. But have you seen any success stories in your content?
You know, it's really I love what I do, and it's a process. I know what I'm building towards. Haven't seen too much light at times, but you know, I see what some other content creators do. I don't agree with a lot of things with people publicizing things like snakes biting, snakes being aggressive, and that's kind of the caption and the real trademark of the post. I'll never stick my hand in there and get bit and show everybody. I'd rather educate people on things that they can actually learn from and stuff that they can make them better and more educated. And I'm not just looking for like views. And I hope to keep on that track and make some change, because there's a lot of people with a lot of power that have a lot of viewers and stuff like that, and they're just not sharing the right information.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I've come out publicly as a chronic Facebook Reels user, so I get a lot of that content that's like, oh, crikey, like I got bit by this snake. So that's a really interesting point that I didn't think about. Now that I'm looking back at it, I don't really remember them giving me any education on it. It was more just like, here's this crazy video, and it's good to shine some light on the reptile, I don't want to call it an industry, but that group of animals and how they actually work and how to take care of them. I know some hobby pet kind of scenarios that have not really gone well for people. So I think it's really important to inform clients and pet owners specifically.
It's hard, and I spoke about this a little bit before, but a lot of people don't trust science, right? Because they might not understand it. And when we don't understand something, it provokes a lot of fear. Same with like snakes, and they bite, and that's what people believe. So what strategies do you use to have people engage more and truly understand what's happening, to not be so afraid and feel like this is relatable?
Yeah, no, it's just to piggyback off that again, is that, you know, in vet med, we want owners to bring their reptiles into vets, and they want to care about them. Showing people what people see as snakes biting and reptiles not being treated correctly, that's not going to make people feel as compassionate for the reptile. It's not going to make them want to say, hey, I need to bring this in to the veterinarian. So kind of changing that ideology is very important. Something else is just, you know, I held snakes when I was younger. I really started my page my freshman year, and one of my great friends and businesses, Cold Blooded Kingdom, they taught me so much about reptiles. And I held I would say my adult life, one of my first snakes my freshman year, which was a reticulated python. And it wasn't like I have all these kind of thoughts about it, that I'm scared of this, scared of that. And they're really, if you do things the correct way and handle things safely, there's nothing there. Well, at the end, there always is animals. There's always a chance. But if you treat things with respect and do things the proper way, there's safe ways to do things. It's not just you're reaching in. Everything that we see online is mishandling and people not using snake hooks and people touching them during feeding responses and not respecting the animal's cues and stuff like that. and just showing the right way to do things is just how I try and get rid of that fear that people.
That's absolutely amazing. I am a previous snake owner. I've always loved reptiles. I also want to see pocket pets later in my future. I'm a rabbit owner. So, for instance, we had like parrot rescue on our show as well, and they spoke about pet stores having a lot of misinformation. I think that's incredibly frustrating, right? And they don't talk about the year-to-year veterinary care. So I'm really glad that you're bringing that up, because we need resources with correct information that's accessible, that's relatable, that people can understand. So thank you so much for doing all of this. We really appreciate it. And how do you navigate situations like this? Because I'm sure you get a lot of misinformation in comments on your page, wondering like, oh, really? But I've seen it in a different way.
Well, I'm very open to information, and I'm not going to say that I'm a complete expert with everything. I always love to hear what other professionals have to say, what they think, and I'm always just a sponge ready to learn. So I always like to hear different perspectives before I write my script. I always get it fact-checked by multiple people. And yeah, it's just kind of listening to what people are saying and trying to reroute it. And, I have my sources. I know my information, just being confident in that. And I hope that the more I learn, the more people I meet, the farther this journey takes me, the more confident I will be in my information, and the more people will trust me with my information.
That's very true.
All right, well, we're going to have one more question, and then we're going to end it off with a little bit more of a fun mini speed round, which seems intimidating, and I promise it's not. But since we're at APVMA Symposium, what do you see as the future of APVMA? What's something you want to see? What's something you want to see continue? Really anything. What are your visions?
I love the APVMAs. I came last year at North Carolina with my university, and it was amazing. I knew I had to come back this year. I'm one of the few members that came from my school this year. I came by plane, and it's just so amazing to be able to network face-to-face with vet schools. You cannot beat that you're able to get a true personal connection with them, to then follow up with emails, make Zoom calls. And the early, something I would like to see more is that people understanding the value of that, and that more schools wanting to be involved. Because it is truly, I say this to the members in my club, the best thing I did in my undergrad in pre-vet was going to the APVMA.
I definitely tell members that every single year. I said it freshman year, I said it last year, and I've said it this year when we were, I don't want to say recruiting, but advertising Symposium to our personal chapter. We pushed it a little bit heavy because every single person that had been in our club was like, you have to go. Like, it's one of our highlights of our year. We love coming.
Definitely, and this is my 4th APVMA, and I've loved being president of it, but being able to expand the role has been my favorite thing, and every year it's completely different. I have similarities, but the venue's different, the schools are different, how everything is organized is different, and you get to meet new people every single year. So, on to our speed round now.
All right, my first one is, what is maybe your favorite reptile, or just a really cool species that not a lot of people talk about, do you want to bring some attention to?
I love them all. I love monitor lizards. They're very fascinating to me, particularly in my very early on with my experiences at a place Cold-Blooded Kingdom, where my reptile love really started, hands-on. They had one of the first ones I really handled was an Ackie monitor, so they hold a very special spot in my heart.
My next question is probably, name a favorite fun fact about that animal you just listed.
They are Australian. They're the spiny-tailed monitor. They're one of the smallest species of monitor, and they're just very unique for that. I really got to learn how to handle them because they're so small, and they're afraid of, they're not big like white throat monitors and Asian water monitors and stuff like that. So everything you do, they're much more intuitive of. So you have to really be more patient and be more gentle with them to learn. And that was really important for me to learn how to work with other reptiles.
Sure. What's the most difficult reptile you'll think there is to house? I used to have a chameleon. It was not easy.
I would say for pet owners, chameleon, very difficult. There's a lot of things that go into it. They don't drink standing water. You need to mist them. They need the screen for the cage. I would not recommend it for pet owners. So that's probably the most common one that is difficult. I think all reptiles in general with things. I feel like a lot of people think they're really easy and they need time and effort to put into them. So people should definitely, it's always said, have to do more research and learn about them more and learn what they need, not just go in and purchase them.
All right, and your very final question, do you have any advice, special encouraging words, or anything that you'd like to share with your fellow pre-vets?
I would say, no matter what happens, keep moving forward. Keep on looking for different opportunities and unique opportunities, because you don't just want to do the standard. You want to see what you could do differently to make yourself stand out and just become a better person by different experiences of vet med and just different experiences in general to make you a stronger applicant and a better person veterinarian.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you in the next interview.